The answer is contempt. According to John Gottman, who I think is perhaps the foremost marriage therapist and marriage writer in the world today, he says that contempt is the most destructive negative behavior in a relationship. That is the number one predictor of divorce, that if he can see contempt as a pattern in the way that couples communicate, forgive the airplane, then he can predict with likelihood and confidence that unless things change, that couple will get divorced. Contempt, communicating disdain, disgust, disregard, disrespect, kind of mocking, with our words, I'm better than you, or you're nothing. With our tone marked by sarcasm, body language, the eye roll, the dreaded eye roll. All kind of markings of contempt in a relationship. Gottman calls contempt number one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse for relationships. And when it's a regular pattern, you're more likely to get divorced. Couples are more likely to be sick, physically sick, to catch diseases. The effect on kids is negative as well. And it's incredibly important now because we're home we're teleworking now. Most of us are home for 8 hours. When it's supposed to do that, don't touch your face. We're teleworking, so we're home. We're going to get on each other's nerves. We're going to be communicating more than ever. This is something that we need to be aware of. And the fact of the matter is that there is good news. That there is an antidote, a vaccine, if you will, for contempt. But it's not simple and it's not easy. And it's going to take some training, and it might not work as you would like it at first, and it might be frustrating or awkward. But for those of you who are recruiters, I want you to think about a future soldier. What you would say to a future soldier who came back to you and said, I've been running for 2 weeks, I've been trying to do push-ups for 2 weeks, and I'm still at 1, or I still can't run 100 yards, and I'm about ready to give up because it's not working as fast as or I'm not being able to run as fast as I would like. What would you tell them? What guidance would you give that future soldier? My guess is you would give the guidance, keep going forward, keep training, don't give up, you will see fruit. Well, I say the same thing to you right now. This, what I'm going to share with you, this kind of 3-step method to defeat contempt is doable. But it's going to take some work, and it's going to take some training, and it's going to take some effort in order to do it. So 3 steps in order to defeat contempt. Number 1 is to understand yourself. I live by Nellis Air Force Base, so I might not even hear that, but I'm sure that you can. Understand yourself. Clarify your desires. Clarify and understand your needs. For example, when you treat your spouse with contempt or when you say contemptible things, what is triggering that? What is going on? What is the subject matter? What are you being contemptible about, if you will? Is it time? Is it sex? Is it attention, television? Is it the way his brain was wired? Is it a mindset? What exactly is it? This isn't something you might not need to even share with your spouse. It's just good for you to understand. What is going on inside of you that is putting you in a position or a state of mind to kind of say something contemptible or to treat your spouse in a contemptible manner? So that's number 1. Simply understand yourself. Pretty simple. Number 2 is the hard part. And number 2 is what John Gottman calls building a culture of fondness and appreciation. Let me say that again. Building a culture or nurturing or creating a culture of fondness and appreciation. And in doing this, what you're doing, 2 things. You are training yourself, number 1, to see the good things in your spouse. Okay, because sometimes our hearts are hard or bitter, and it's hard for us to see the good things. But they are there. And we need sometimes to train ourselves. And so what I'm going to share with you is kind of a training regimen in which you can do that. And number 2, not just identify them or see them, but to verbalize them, to say them, to share them with your spouse. So what is, or how can we develop, nurture, or build, create a culture of fondness and appreciation? In the comments on this video, you will see a link. And the link will be to a document Okay, and this document has about 90 adjectives on it. Very affirming and encouraging adjectives. Supportive, beautiful, strong, independent, smart. Words like that. Your job is going to be with your spouse. This is a kind of a couples activity. Identify 3. Pick 3 out that you think identify or accurately depict or describe your spouse. But just don't share those 3. What I want you to do is to attach each one to a specific incident or event. So that will make it come alive. So it's just not saying, oh, honey, you were pretty, but it's saying, when you wore that blue dress, 2 Saturdays ago, when we went out, you were gorgeous. So for example, for my wife, Carrie, a couple days ago, we watched the previous video that I did on hope. And as we were watching it afterwards, she had some constructive criticism things to say, but at the same time she had so much support and encouragement and how wonderful she thought it was, and I felt so built up and I felt so affirmed that I would so if I was doing that, I'd say, Carrie, you are supportive, and do you remember a couple days ago when you breathed life into me after I showed you my developing hope video? And so do that with your spouse. And do 3, and she'll do 3 for you, or he'll do 3 for you, and you do 3 for them. Now, why is this important? Why is it so important that we do this? Really, I think it's a matter of life and death. And if you look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. I read this verse so long ago, and it just kind of struck me very powerfully, and I'll share why right now. It says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. This isn't just swear words, curse words, the F word, or anything like that, but it's also words that tear people down, okay? But only what is helpful for building others up according to their, not desires, not wishes, not wants, according to their needs. We need to be built up. We need encouragement. It's not something we would like to have, would function well with. It is something that we need. And if needs are not met, for example, we need water, we need air, we need food, and when those needs are not met, we die. Well, the Bible is saying here is that we need to be built up. Your spouse needs to be built up. And so this is one way in which we can do that, by nurturing a culture of fondness and appreciation. And finally, this is going to take practice. It might be awkward at first. You might struggle at first, but you need to hang in there and do it on a regular basis. Just don't do it once and say, hey, I got my shot, my vaccine, we're good. No, this is something we develop the culture. The Apostle Paul said we need to fan into flame the gift of God. In other words, what starts out as a little spark, we need to work to fan it. It's just not the little spark and it's going to go. No, we work to fan that flame, to keep it hot, to keep the flame going. And that takes effort, that takes work. I want to point you back a couple of weeks. I did a video called Developing Passion, and it was really focused on this idea of kind of fanning the flame and getting what might be a little flame to be maybe a big roaring fire. So that's the second thing, is to nurture a culture of fondness and appreciation for your spouse. And that's going to take some work. So we got number one. Number one was to know yourself. Number 2 was to create or to nurture that culture. And then number 3 was to check your heart. Because hearts can become bitter. And hearts can become hard. And after years or whatever of contemptible language, we can become kind of calloused and hard to our spouse. And so I really want you to ask this question. Is my spouse someone or something I value? Is my spouse something that I value? That is ultimately a heart question. Maybe your heart needs to change. It's a heart question. Why is it a heart question, and why is it important? Because Matthew chapter 6 verse 21, Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Oh wow. where your treasure is, what you value, Jesus said, that's where your heart is. So repeat, we can defeat this contempt monster. To know yourself, to work and develop that culture of fondness and appreciation, and to check your heart. When we do those three things, we can have a good impact on our marriage. I promise I'm going to drop the video next Monday. It's a study of the Apostle Paul and how he overcame failure. So it's kind of part 2 of the failure series. But as far as today goes, walk in peace and have the best day possible.